Another one bites the dust. Another one bites the dust. And another one gone, and another one gone. Another one bites the dust. Hey, hey, I'm gonna get you too. Another one bites the dust.
It's Fireside Chats with SS Grandma, week number 12. And we're going to kick things off, pun intended. I'm going to throw the ball over to Grandma now, and she's going to take us back to Grandpa's Gardena days.
Well, Stan finally reached the dream of his life. He was coaching in high school. He was the head coach at Gardena, and he loved every minute of it. His guys liked him, loved him, really. And Bill Kelly, one of his first players, remembered him when he got on the team. Stan was talking to a big lineman who wasn't listening too well. So Stan picked him up by his shoulder pads and lifted him up in the air and told him what for. And Bill Kelly thought to himself, wow, I'm sure not getting him mad at me. But Stan, he never cussed the boys out or hit them or did anything like that. But when he said something, they knew he meant it. In fact, they loved him so much when we were building our house, they would often come during the summer and help coach, put up a beam or do something like that. And they enjoyed it. We enjoyed having the labor. And he also had them come up to Mammoth sometimes in the summer. And of course, you weren't supposed to coach in the summer, but he'd invite them up and they'd come up, and of course he'd get them running. So they were running in that high altitude, and that helped them get in great shape for football the next fall. So that's about it with the Gardena teams. But he got so he was well known in Gardena, and all the people of Gardena fully respected him. There were a lot of Japanese families there, which was amazing because he fought the Japanese in the war. But he always liked the Japanese because one of his buddies in the coal camps was a young Japanese boy named Paul Benai, who later came out to California after his dad broke his back in the mines. I think I told you the story when Beepops came by and they said, what happened? And it was ceiling had fallen on one of the workers, and they said, oh, it's just a Jap. And Bebop said, it's a human being, get him out of there. And that family never forgot Bebop Smith. And we were close with him all our lives. When Paul, I think after they came out after the war, he became one of the first assemblymen in California of Japanese descent.
How far did Grandpa get the players to run when they were in Mammoth? Did they do really long runs? Or?
Well, they run quite a bit up and down the run. And at 9,000 feet, you got in pretty good shape. They'd be running around the camp. It didn't matter, because at 9,000 feet, that's pretty good training running around. They went fishing too, but you'd get them running. So.
Now, as we approach the summer, it's kind of the same time of year. Grandpa was graduating, and then he went off to serve for World War II. Grandma Noni asked what it was like while Grandpa was away at war, and she said that you were living with Beepops and Mum D and with your parents, and we wanted to get some more stories from that time.
Well, I had Stan's car, so I would spend a week with my folks, and then I'd spend a week over at Mum D's because, of course, I was pregnant with Louise, and then, of course, they both loved being grandparents on both sides. And so I'd go spend a week with my mother's house and a week at Mum D's and Bebop's house with the baby. And I can remember Louie didn't settle down good sometimes. 10 o'clock was her fussy time at night. Bepops would come home from work. He worked swing shift. And he'd put her over his shoulder and sort of hang her over there with her head down. And she'd finally calm down and go to sleep. loved being grandparents. And I liked, being there with them because it was family. And being my first baby, and of course I was lonely without having my husband because he was gone 13 months the first time. And then the second time it was from about 7 or 8 months when the war ended. And Bruce was about 7 months when he came home.
Well, Grandpa was off at war. Were you working? Did you have a job during that time?
I could have gone back and finished my nurse's training, and I fully intended to. But when the moment came to go back, I couldn't do it. So this little girl would not have a daddy here, and then not having her mommy, I couldn't do it. And so I put off my rest of my training, and I don't know, I don't think I'll go back anymore.
Did you, Mum D, and B-Pops support the war effort during that time?
Oh, yes. Mum D was Rosie the Riveter. She worked from the war, and B-Pops was a guard at the steel plant. And my dad worked in the shipyards. And of course, my mother was a waitress at one of the top restaurants in the town. So.
What was the restaurant called?
Pig and Whistle. So it was a silly name, but it was very fancy restaurants. And she made very good tips. But it was hard on her. That was very hard work carrying those heavy trays. I'm sure it took a toll on her.
Where did they live?
Oh, gosh, I'm trying to remember. Well, my mother and father lived right in L.A., and well, so did B-Pops and Mum D, so I guess it was maybe a 15-minute drive. It wasn't that much. L.A. wasn't that big. It was just like a big city, but not like L.A. is today.
Do you remember?
More like San Luis Obispo.
Do you remember what part of LA?
No, just L.A. was just a nice little city.
There was only one part of LA.
It was only downtown and a little bit of the outskirts. And so Mum D and B-Pops lived on the east side, and I think we lived more or less near the center of town.
Now fast forward a couple generations to my generation and tell us about the time Brandon got stuck in a tree.
We retired and moved out to the ranch, but one day we happened to look in the paper, and had made the headlines with Brandon. I think 2 years old, he climbed a tree in their backyard and got caught in the crotch of the tree and couldn't get his leg out. And there's a picture of the fireman getting Brandon out of the tree in the backyard. And he had his usual grin on his face.
Did you just get it stuck up there on purpose so it could get rescued by the firemen?
I don't think he got there on purpose. He was just climbing the tree, and all of a sudden his leg got stuck, and he couldn't get out. And Bruce and Ann couldn't get him out, so the fire department got him out. I'm sure they have a picture of it somewhere. Yeah, where they lived. It was probably their first house. I can't quite remember where it was. It's close to the house we live in now. Father had the little children up there and talking to them. And he was talking about a father's love on Father's Day. And he made this statement, you can't find love in a grocery store. And little Brandon, who was about 4 or 5, raised his hand and said, yes, you can. And Father looked at him and he said, oh, it's right next to the Pampers. Because the other diapers were called Love and Pampers. And the whole church erupted.
Great. Well, this has been week number 12 by the fire with SS Grandma, and we'll be back for week number 13 for some more summertime stories.
Another one bites the dust.